This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you want to legally race in Formula 1 in 2023, you need something called a super license. This stops any random with mad money just bringing in a wad of cash and paying to drive. Now, it has been argued that the requirements for this license are a bit too tough. It was a big talking point last year after IndyCar driver Colton Herta was denied entry to F1 because he hadn't ticked all the boxes. That's a conversation in itself that I've had in the past, link above. Because today I wanted to find the most niche, the most unknown, the kind of drivers that you're most likely to overlook who actually do have a super license and could race in Formula 1 if a team offered them the opportunity. So as always, let's talk about it. Oh yeah, and it's been a while since I've guilt tripped you lot into making sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. It really does help get the videos and push them out into the YouTube ecosphere. Now, firstly, let's quickly go through the requirements needed for a super license so that we're all on the same page. Some of these go without saying, but the main three, the most important distinctive ones, are that you are 18 or over and have a valid driving license. That was changed after Max Verstappen jumped in when he was just 17. You need to have completed at least 80% of 2 full single-seater seasons, and you have to have accumulated at least 40 points over the previous 3 years in all of these different series. They all give different numbers of points. I'll keep this on screen for a while so you can have a good look. From Formula 2, Formula E, all the way down to top tier FIA karting championships. Anything that is FIA sanctioned essentially gets super license points, apart from you got IndyCar Super Formula, which they give points, and not as much as they deserve, I think, as series, but it's an FIA super license point system, so I guess they hold all the cards, don't they? And again, as we saw from the Colton Herta situation last season where Red Bull wanted to put him in an AlphaTauri, the FIA are non-negotiable on this. You need the points, otherwise you're not getting in. So I want to kick off this list with the driver that I think is probably least surprising of this list. I've gone for drivers that, for me at least, have maybe fallen off my radar. And when I was researching this video, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. No offence, of course, but when you've been on the sidelines for all of this season and all of the previous season, then someone like Robert Schwartzman, current Ferrari reserve driver, might end up getting overlooked. Still only 23, his junior career was pretty exceptional. 2019 Formula 3 world champion, which doesn't count towards his tally because that was 4 years ago. But no worries, because he jumped into Formula 2, got P4 in 2020, P2 in 2021. Again, he was on the sidelines for all of 2022, but that didn't matter because the P4 and the P2 in Formula 2 got him 40 points and 30 points respectively, putting his total at 70, well above the 40-point threshold. Ferrari have kept him, they've stuck by him, and rightly so. Robert has done a fantastic job in the junior formulas, and I think he is one of those drivers that might not get an opportunity in F1, but if he does, he will have earned it. Kind of similar to Callum Ilott in a way, I suppose, in terms of the standing that I hold them in based off their junior formulas. The reason Callum's not in this list because he also currently has enough super license points for an F1 seat, but he's in IndyCar, he's front and centre, doing pretty well so far, I would say, in America's premier open wheeler series. Callum's got the limelight that Robert doesn't really have at the moment in his reserve role at Ferrari, hence why I put him on this list. The fact that he finished P2 in 2021 as well means that actually, yeah, if Robert wanted a seat next season, 2024, in Formula 1, he would still have the points. But also, you got to think, if it doesn't happen in 24, that door is probably going to be closed for good. I mean, stranger things have happened, but only time will tell. Although one door that Robert has not kept closed in any way, shape or form is his online digital presence store. He's big on his socials. He loves the TikTok. But the one thing Robert's missing, mate, if you're watching, get yourself a website. You need one to underpin it all, mate. So check out today's video sponsor, Squarespace. You can build your own beautiful online home in an absolute doddle. It is honestly a breeze. Thousands of beautiful templates, drag and drop functionality. It's so easy, mate. Best thing of all, it's completely free to try. It's only when you want to publish your website live to the world that you have to pay anything. Look, if I can afford the monthly costs for my website, then I'm sure Robert with the Ferrari reserve driver bag, I reckon you can too, mate. I reckon you can stretch to it. And just to sweeten the deal a little bit more, once you are ready to put your website live to the world, Robert, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. Scott Dixon. Listen, IndyCar fans out there, I apologise, okay? I know he's a legend of IndyCar, but the reality is, on this side of the pond, Scott Dixon's name doesn't carry anywhere near the legacy it does stateside. And that's wrong, because look at the stats, they're mad. Maybe I'll dedicate a video to the 42-year-old another day. But I'm going to glean over the basis that we need. I mean, his debut season in IndyCar was all the way back in 2003, and he won it all. The whole thing. He's participated in every single season since, so this year, 2023, is his 21st season in IndyCar, and he's won 6. That's almost a 1 in 3 championship win rate. Madness. And in a spec series, by the way. A way more level playing field than F1 has ever had. And furthermore, this isn't a man who just banked on early success and has just been chilling in his later years in the sport. Not by any stretch of the imagination. He is Fernando Alonso, but IndyCar. So we look at the last 3 seasons that get looked at for a super license. Well, last year he finished 3rd. That got him 20 points. The season before he finished 4th, which got him 10. And in 2020, he won the whole thing. That's another 40 points. Boom, 70. Job done. All achieved in what I would argue I think is probably the most competitive open-wheeler motorsport series in the world, bar none. Question though, particularly for anyone out there who's very well versed in Scott Dixon and understands what he's about. Do you think a 42-year-old Scott Dixon, could jump into an F1 car now and do well? Because, he did a little bit of testing in a Williams in like the mid 2000s, which was the Fernando Alonso Renault era. That's how long ago that was. But would that be too much to ask for him to jump into these modern day F1 cars and be quick, even given all the experience he's got in IndyCar? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because I'm not educated enough on him as a driver to have a strong opinion on that, to be honest. And as of recording, Scott sits P6 in the IndyCar Championship. He took a P3 podium at the season opener in St. Pete. Eduardo Mortara spent years plying his trade in DTM before jumping into a Formula E seat from 2018. The 36-year-old took some time to find his feet in Formula E, but the last 2 seasons, 22 and 21, he really shone. His stock price certainly has hit the roof. In 2021, he managed a P2 championship finish, giving him 25 points, and in 2022, he was P3, giving him 20, 45 in total. Eduardo's career is a really interesting one when you look back through the years. One of them that, so many drivers come through single-seaters with loads of potential and do well, but there's only a certain number of F1 seats, and sometimes you have to make a smarter decision to go to a different series, like Eduardo went to DTM. 2009 he was in GP2, and 2010 he was in the Formula 3 Euro Series, which he won against, Valtteri Bottas was P3 that year. And most impressively, I'd say, in 2009 and 10, Eduardo won the Macau Grand Prix both years in a row, beating the likes of Marcus Ericsson, Valtteri Bottas, Gilles Bianchi, Daniel Ricciardo, Brendan Hartley, Jean-Eric Vergne, Antonio Felix da Costa, and Felix Rosenqvist. But in 2011, he decided to go down the DTM route, a series he'd stay in for 8 seasons, a career high finish of P2 in 2016. A 36-year-old Eduardo Mortara, I can't really get overly excited about the prospect of him going into an F1 seat, to be honest. I think that ship sailed, but just because you don't get to F1 doesn't mean you can't have a really successful, rewarding motor racing career, and Mortara's a great example of that. Unfortunately for Eduardo, it's not been a great start to this season. 4 retirements on the board so far, P20 in the Formula E Championship. Tomoki Nijiri must be racing royalty in Japan, surely. But I'm sure some of you watching may have never ever heard of him, because the 33-year-old has never raced competitively, as far as I can see anyway, outside of his home country of Japan. And when you bear in mind the success he's had against the calibre of drivers he's raced against, you've got to wonder if he'd made the decision to leave Japan and race more on an international level, what he could have achieved. 9 Super Formula and 10 Super GT seasons complete. When you look at the last 3 Super Formula seasons on their own, they get him more than enough Super License points to jump into F1. Championship winner in 22 and 2021, plus a P5 in 2020, that gives him 57 points. And then you have Super GT, which if you don't know, which you should know, it's basically Japan's answer to DTM, top tier touring cars, GT500s, GT300s, 2 different classes as well. Tomoki's been in the GT500s for years now, and a P2 and P5 finish, championship finish in 21 and 20 respectively, get him an extra 23 Super License points. That pushes his total to 80. Over double what he actually needs. I haven't researched this, but I can't imagine there's anyone who isn't already in F1 or who hasn't driven F1 in the past who has more Super License points right now than Tomoki Nijiri, but has never raced an F1 car before. And actually this season he is Liam Lawson's teammate at Team Mugen, which is one hell of a bar for the young Kiwi to try and match he will learn a lot from this year, I'm sure, with the help of Nigiri. Because that man, and I don't say this often, is different gravy. Tomoki's come out flying in 2023. He leads the championship, having taken a P2 and P1 at Fuji, the season opener. Mitch Evans, Formula E driver, 28 years old, wind the clock back, and he had a few impressive seasons in Junior Formula and GP2, but never really, after 4 seasons, capitalised, never won the championship, so then decided to make the fairly early jump to Formula E ahead of the 2017 season. Over his 6 years in the category, he has steadily improved, and he's been with Jaguar the entire time as well, by the way. He's grown and that team's grown with him, I think. A P4 finish in 2021 and a P2 finish last season in 2022. And 21 was actually quite deceptive. Yes, he finished P4, but he was leading the championship going into the final race, poled it as well, and then the car just didn't move off the line. He got absolutely wiped out from behind, which ended his race and his championship hopes. Now, a P2 and a P4 in back-to-back Formula E seasons does only get Mitch 35 points. You go back a season before that and he finished P7 in 2020, which gives him another 4, which leaves him at 39, which is still 1 short. But don't worry, because as we saw last season with Logan Sargent getting all of the FP1 run-ins with Williams, every time a driver does an FP1 session cleanly over a certain number of kilometres, I think it's 100 kilometres, they get a super license point. So if an F1 team did want to give Mitch Evans an opportunity, he could jump in, do the FP1 session, he'd have the super license points, and he'd be good to go. Mitch had a steady start to 2023, but he won back-to-back rounds in Sao Paulo and Berlin, putting in P4 at the moment in this year's Formula E Championship. Which driver on this list would you most like to see in Formula 1 hardware? I think, in my opinion, the most likely for sure is Robert Schwartzman. I think teams would be silly to completely disregard him going into next season, given the talent that he showed in junior formulas. Dixon and Nigiri are the two most interesting for sure. I mean, Dixon's 42, Nigiri's still only 33, so if he wanted to, maybe he could. I'd love to have seen them both give it a crack in maybe their late 20s. You know, I think it's too late for Dixon. Nigiri, maybe as a one-off, I don't know. He's got a great relationship with Honda, so maybe if Honda do eventually buy an F1 team, maybe they buy up AlphaTauri and we could see something there. I think that's probably the most likely eventuality of him getting into F1, which in itself is probably quite unlikely to happen. And did I miss any niche super license holders out from this list? Let me know in the comments below. Shout out once again to Squarespace for the continued love and support. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.